I do want to bring you back to some statistics that you and I have talked about in the past, and I'm really proud of. Again, gives me an opportunity to brag on my team, but during COVID, as an example, our on-time delivery from Southeast Asia remained in the 80 to 85% range, where the globally reported on-time delivery carrier container rates, I should say, were closer to 15 or 20%. And that's because our team, again, proactively planning, books the container space well ahead in anticipation of customer demand. So we were locked in when everyone else was scrambling. So we can book ahead, make some proactive plans to reserve space. Just one example of how we are trying to stay ahead of the challenges that some of our counterparts may be experienced.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Inspiring Innovation, and we are here to talk about all things within the manufacturing space, and that can be macro events like we'll be diving into today. It can be, what goes into our supply chain. It can be what you need to have success with your projects, and really just what goes into all the things behind the scenes of manufacturing. So we appreciate you joining us today. I'm really excited about our guest today. We have our director of supply chain, who does so much more than that. I refer to her sometimes as our Canadian advisor, as she's coming to us from Canada. But Jen, when I was thinking about supply chain, I thought about it kind of like IT. It's like, when nothing's going wrong, no one's thinking about supply chain. And you all do so much behind the scenes and really in the last 4 or 5 years, not behind the scenes, to really ensure that the right materials with the right quality are making it to the right places so that we can have success manufacturing our customers' products. So I know that you do a lot and your team does a lot, and you're really a big part of strategy in manufacturing today. When we think about dual sourcing products, when we think about risks in a time that's been more uncertain than ever. So we're really excited to hear from you today, and it's, a timely time to be talking. It seems as if every hour there's a news update about the Strait of Hormuz. And I think the last I saw, and we'll kind of timestamp this too, because this won't release for maybe even a week or two. But today is April 17th, Friday. So to caveat that, I think the layest I saw was that Iran said the Strait of Hormuz is open, and then Trump said, no, it's still going to be a blockade. So that is likely to change by the time we're done filming this. Every day there's something new. So Jen, if you don't mind, first, I guess just tell us a little bit about your role here at Polo when it comes to supply chain, and then let's get right into it. Let's talk a little bit about what's been all over the news at a high level, and why does it matter for manufacturers right now?
Yeah, sounds good, Sean. Thanks for having me on. And you're right, this is timely. You and I have talked a lot about AI in our roles at Polo Custom Products, and I cannot build enough agents to keep up with the news. Doing everything we can to stay abreast of the ever-evolving situation in the Strait of Hormuz specifically. But we will get into that, and I'm looking forward to it. What I do at Polo Custom Products, I oversee a team who really makes me look good. Sean, you and I have talked about this before too. Makes all the difference, right? They show up every day. They lean in and love the culture of Polo, which is to solve our customers' problems. On a tactical side, they are sourcing raw materials, qualifying suppliers, managing inventory, managing supplier performance, managing logistics, making sure we're getting the best deal when it comes to tariffs and duties. That is a whole other side tangent we could talk about for a while probably. Yeah. But at the end of the day, this team is committed to continually mitigating risk for our organization and for our customers across supply chains. So, I'm sure you've probably heard the joke before that if you want to buy something, you can pick 2 out of the 3. You can have it fast, you can have it be high quality, or you can have it cheap, but you can't have all 3. And so for supply chain, really, it's a balancing act in orchestrating that delicate balance between making sure we are providing excellent service while still mitigating risk.
Yeah, that's well said. And I feel like I've heard the line, I want a premium look with an economic kind of budget attached to that. And so I've seen your team be really creative with sourcing and finding materials that are economical, but also have that look and feel and comfort, even depending on the product for our customers. So we're lucky to be able to sell your team and the abilities that they bring to the table and the value that they bring to our customers.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sean, but the feeling's mutual. It's being a custom manufacturer. Our supply chain model is somewhat different than a commercial off-the-shelf type supplier. We aren't selling a product, we're selling a solution. And once we get through that design phase and move into production and our customer has qualified and approved our supply chain, we can't just quickly make a change, right? So one of the overarching themes that I'll probably touch on throughout this podcast and that I'm sure you've heard me kind of preach about is communication.
Yes.
And that really is the key and solves so many problems. And that doesn't just mean drowning somebody in information, but making sure that your communication is clear. You're not just creating noise for somebody to have to get through. You are working to be transparent and ensure that everybody has all of the right information at their fingertips, because we are all expected to make quick decisions every day, and without all of the context, we can quickly miss.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And there's so many factors and things and inputs that can get complicated in terms of being able to deliver a quality product on time. And I've overused this statement, but it's maybe cliche, but early bad news is good news. And we were with the prospect that was talking about what they look for in a potential manufacturing partner. And he said, I don't want to just hear, yes, we're good. Yes, we're good. Yes, we're good. And then the deadline comes up and it's like, oh, actually. and I do feel like that's what makes a good partnership, is that, hey, here's the risk that has arose. Maybe it's a resin change, which gives me shudders even thinking about, but maybe it's something else that might impact a timeline. But when we come to our customer, let them know it's happening, let them know multiple solutions, then we can work together to get all the resources that need to be brought around the issue to come up with a solution and still deliver.
Absolutely. But, proactively working to mitigate risk before there's a disruption. Mm-hmm. Being prepared beats reactivity every time.
Absolutely.
And again, that resilience in our supply chain is not just good for Polo, but it's good for our customers, which is what we're all here for.
Yeah. Yeah, and having dual sources, which we may dig into a little deeper, but that takes time to qualify another supplier, and so getting ahead of the curve before we need one is a big deal, and something that your team does really well and can find a lot of value in multiple ways, whether it's cost, lead times, or just even risk mitigation. in that way. So let's get into the topic of the day, and let's get into this the Strait of Hormuz, and I think the latest stat that I heard was that there's about 500 million, sorry, only 500 million barrels of oil that have been trapped basically since the barricade, and so how does that impact our space? I mean, I know that this may not go directly to the U.S., but it impacts so many different things, and there's so many ripple effects. So how would you say you're seeing things from a macro level, and how's it impacting our space and suppliers and manufacturing landscape today?
I feel like we are not going to have enough time to get into all of the details. So I'll try to keep it high level here, but I think most people have realized that this little tiny, portion of ocean in the world that most of us probably didn't know existed until recently is one of the world's most critical choke points for global oil and energy products. And while Polo Custom Products isn't sourcing anything directly from that area of the world, there is that trickle-down effect because all of the fuel costs, the shipping routes are impacted, supplier operations are impacted. All of that trickle-down happens pretty quickly. And once that domino effect begins, it's hard to stop. Everyone is working to hedge the uncertainty in the market. An analogy everybody I'm sure will remember with great fondness is the beginning of COVID, and you'll remember the whole toilet paper, it's kind of become a joke now, but the same concept, right? Everyone was unsure of what was coming. There was volatility. They knew there's probably going to be a finite amount of product available, so everybody ran and bought up all the toilet paper they could find. Same principle, just on a much, much larger scale. So what we're seeing for our business is anything that is a derivative of a petrochemical, and I can give you some more details about that later. Pricing is changing, lead times are changing, availability is changing. I saw a stat this morning, or an article I should say, that said the EU has roughly 6 weeks of fuel for aircraft fuel.
Wow.
So think about the impact of that. Now, that's not to say that oil's not available from other places, and we're seeing some other players come into the market, but again, there's a cost to that because they've recognized their value proposition right now. So it's not just an easy solution. The other part of this is everyone is very quick to pass on those price increases, and they will be much slower to rescind them after everything settles down a little bit, which is another piece we can talk about later, and how our team kind of manages that to make sure we don't fall into those silent slopes and pay overinflated prices once things settle down.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I did hear that some of the sanctions on Russia have been let up to have like a relief valve essentially for different members of the international community that are not able to get those 500 million barrels of oil. And then I've also heard like China, for instance, has refineries in a lot of different places, but they were selling that for to countries like Australia and other places that now they need it. China needs their own oil at this point. So it is an interesting time, and I am eager to dive deeper in that. So right now, you already alluded to it, but what material pricing impact are you seeing right now, and what can people expect in the near future here?
We are seeing price increases ranging anywhere from 5% up to 50%. Now that's really kind of outside of the norm. That's an outlier for sure, but it's here, and it's in most cases negotiations are challenged to reduce those, contain cost essentially, because again, suppliers recognize they're paying more for their overhead. They're paying more for their gas, their fuel to keep their plants warm or cool or whatever the case may be. And again, if it is anything related to a resin of any sort or a synthetic, they're comprised of petrochemicals. So, in the cut and sew business, it's challenging because all the synthetic textiles or fibers like a nylon or polyester or I can't think of a third one, of course, synthetic rubber. If it's got to be latex free, those are all petrochemicals. So again, those suppliers are buying up raws wherever they can, which is then creating an over inventory situation and potentially decreasing the availability in the marketplace, and it's just a big spiral. What I'm foreseeing is, even if the Strait of Hormuz were to reopen tomorrow, there will be some damage control that will take a while to replenish stores and ultimately reduce pricing. So the long-term effect of this escalation is not going away anytime soon, even if it is resolved right away.
Yeah, I remember flying into MD&M in 2021 and seeing just the ships waiting at port, and then being at the trade show and basically watching the toilet paper effect take place, where everyone's saying, get your orders in now, get your orders in now. We're going to have to do price increases. Lead times are extending. And so it's like a self-perpetuating prophecy there, where everybody's saying it, taking advantage of it, and then it leads to those over inventory situations and the same kind of madness taking place. So beyond pricing, where do you see the biggest risks and delays and availability and lead times heading?
Honestly, Sean, I think availability and lead times are the even bigger wild cards. So, as I've already mentioned, when uncertainty hits, capacity tightens, suppliers are holding on to their inventory longer, ports become congested, as you mentioned. So even if the materials exist, just getting that material from point A to point B on a predictable timeline becomes more of a challenge. And that's where, manufacturers like Polo can really feel the pain. Now, I do want to bring you back to some statistics that you and I have talked about in the past, and I'm really proud of. Again, gives me an opportunity to brag on my team. But during COVID, as an example, our on-time delivery from Southeast Asia remained in the 80 to 85% range, where the globally reported on-time delivery carrier container rates, I should say, were closer to 15 or 20%. And that's because our team, again, proactively planning, books the container space well ahead in anticipation of customer demand. So we were locked in when everyone else was scrambling, because there's no cost to canceling a container. So we can book ahead, make some proactive plans to reserve space. Just one example of how we are trying to stay ahead of the challenges that some of our counterparts may be experienced. Really, the other big part of that is balancing our inventory, working capital versus service, right? So we've got to be cautious that we're not getting a little too aggressive in what we're bringing in when.
Right.
But also making sure, again, that we are not creating a disruption for our customer.
Yeah. I remember the phrase being thrown around. We went from just in time to just in case, and it seems like another fun world event that we can plan effectively to minimize the impact to our customers and, at the end of the day, the consumers in the world. And so it's never a dull moment, that's for sure. And so, just kind of generally, maybe from a big picture to narrowing it down a little bit, when there is a ripple effect through supply chains, what's the first domino that falls? How does this start, and what's that ripple effect look like?
Sure. Or the tsunami effect is maybe more appropriate.
Yeah.
But typically, from my perspective, energy and transportation are the first domino. So again, in this situation, citing specifically the Strait of Hormuz constraint, the lack of availability for crude and energy are now influencing carrier capacity and supplier pricing behavior and production prioritization. So it's starting with that energy and transportation, but again, it is rippling out to these other areas, and then each disruption kind of multiplies as everybody downstream is working to protect themselves. So buyers are holding more inventory, tying up capital, tying up floor space, creating more demand pulls, and it's a challenge when we are trying to, as a custom manufacturer, we can't really hedge our buys without that excellent communication that our sales team holds with our customers. So when we have that transparent communication, forecasts that we have agreements against, then our team will hedge buys within those boundaries, right? We really look at our suppliers as partners, and I'm seeing that same type of collaborative, transparent, not necessarily transactional relationship building between our customers and our sales team, benefiting everybody from our customers all the way down to our sub tiers. So again, that communication, that visibility, that transparency is key for us to try to, again, mitigate and minimize the impact of any global event for our customers.
This has been such a fun time because, I mean, I think back to even just the Ukraine conflict, and I think you were sending out information about how much chlorine is produced there and how much chlorine inputs into XYZ materials that, and so I mean, it's quite the time to be alive.
It's never boring, Sean.
Right.
Yeah,
yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. We are working through our problem solving, putting our problem solving hats on quite frequently.
Indeed.
And that's, I think, a good segue into, what are some of the things that we do behind the scenes to stay ahead of this and protect our customers. And I mean, I like the mention you had about agreements in place with customers to hold some safety stock of those materials. And so, I mean, I know there's lots of things that we can do to stay ahead, but what are some other practical tips like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sean, and I think it's important to...
But before we get into that, this podcast is brought to you by Polo Custom Products. We are a custom manufacturer that specializes in sewing, sealing, and thermoforming. We work with project engineers, sourcing professionals, and buyers to design, engineer, and manufacture products that cannot afford to fail. If you're interested in working with us, visit our website at www.polocustomproducts.com and fill out a request for quote form. Now, back to the show.
Kind of circle back to what you mentioned at the beginning, that the earlier you identify a risk, the more options you're able to develop to avoid it, right? So, again, our team proactively is constantly looking at continuity planning, identifying risks in our supply chain, recommending to our customers when a second source for a particularly risky material or product may be in order, while also at the same time respecting that not only does it take time for us to qualify a secondary source, find the source, qualify the source within our parameters, but then also for our customer, and in some of the markets that we serve, it's not even just the time, that the dollar amount to qualify a secondary source can be exorbitant, and we recognize that and only bring those alternatives to our customers' attention when we feel like it's justified, right? I would love to have a second source for everything, and that's just not always possible, which is okay. But again, identifying those risks ahead of time to make sure our customer is aware what might be down the road if something is disrupted, and giving them options to consider well ahead of time puts us in a position and puts our customers in a position where they can, again, have the space to make an intelligent decision, hopefully eliminating the disruption altogether.
Easier said than done.
It is, right? And visibility really is the battlefield here. So again, we are constantly reviewing and refining our data. You see in your inbox every morning, we get a number of reports every day trying to bring those exceptions to the surface so that we're again, constantly aware. But the good processes that our teams have in place, the data refinement that our team prides ourselves on, really allows us to, again, proactively identify those risks and ideally give our teams the opportunity. My supply chain team, I only want them touching the exceptions. Once a purchase order is out there in the world and things are happening, we have it set up so it's automated enough. Nobody's touching it or managing it unless there is something that comes back to us. The supplier says they're going to ship late or something like that. Otherwise, it's all automated in the system, which is just a phenomenal win just in terms of efficiencies, and it gives our team the time to really focus on when there is a problem, getting ahead of it and making sure we're staying on top of it.
100%. Yeah, that's so important. And I think, it's interesting to me that you kind of said looking at globally, like looking at the big picture, and those processes are important, but the people side's also important. And you've got a tremendous amount of experience with Polo, with our suppliers, and we have a very diversified supply base. I mean, I know we have hundreds of suppliers all over the globe, and so how important is that, and how does that make an impact in our strategy during complicated times like this?
Supplier diversification it's mission critical. There's no opportunity in today's day and age, or in this day and age, I should say, to rely heavily on any one region, lane, or let alone a supplier. So this has to be intentional, though. It's not about us having as many suppliers as possible. It's about having options when the conditions change, which is, one of the great things in my mind about Polo's leadership. You mentioned my experience in this field. I've been with Polo 26 years, and what I love to share with people is when you look at our executive team, I'm still, one of the babies in terms of tenure here. We have a lot of subject matter experts in this industry who have been here for a very long time, and having experienced the ups and downs over the years, we've all learned and figured out how to proactively look ahead at what might be coming, right? So knowing what sales is expecting from our customers, what we are committing to our customers, gives us the opportunity to, present different opportunities, whether it's importing from Southeast Asia or producing domestically, or now we have our new DR facility coming online, so we'll be able to nearshore. At the end of the day, we're agile and positioned in a way that we can respond to any situation and provide the customer a solution that fits whatever their use case may be. And when there is the next disruption or the next global event that takes place, because something else will come up in 5 years from now, we'll talk about that then, whatever that might look like.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I know.
What's the next big disaster? They seem to be coming faster and faster.
Well, and it's kind of fun to think about what that might be. You never know. But that diversification, when things are running smoothly, proactively looking at that need is what buys you the space to make a good decision when that event or whatever it is may crop up.
Well, I want to go back to something you said there, which was that you are still a baby at 26 years on the team, and so I think that makes me just in the womb still. Haven't even been born yet in Polo terms, but but it does feel like something that I'm very fortunate to be a part of, and I say often, but that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here, and really have a great opportunity to just sell the subject matter experts that we've got a plethora of, and such a great team, and I love how well we can be positioned in any difficult situation because of that. I mean, I truly do feel that way, that we're well positioned to be able to pivot, to move, to, work with different partners that we've developed over the years to shift in case of emergency. So, so you mentioned petrochemicals earlier, and I assume that, if we're talking about specific materials or industries that are going to feel this impact more than others, that may be one that's specifically impacted. But yeah, do you have any other thought? You want to go deeper on petrochemicals, or are there other things that you also think our audience should be aware of as well?
I mean, ultimately, the longer this continues, the more widespread the impact will be. But to go back to the raw materials that Polo uses often for our customers' products that are feeling the impact now are those derivatives of petroleum. So anything that is resin-based, PVC film, urethane film, polyolefins, synthetic fibers, and synthetic rubbers, anything that involves heavy transportation, so anything that's been on an ocean container, the impact is real, and it is now. Nobody's completely insulated, though. Again, as this continues to work its way through and trickle through the supply chain, even those suppliers who are not directly inputting a petrochemical into their product, they're going to be affected because, again, their energy costs are increasing, their incoming transportation costs are increasing. I mean, it's all related and connected in a way that's going to be really hard to reel back in once things do settle down.
All that being considered, if you had to give one piece of advice to any sourcing manager or procurement team listening in, what do you think they should be doing right now to stay ahead of things?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I don't think there's any one exactly right answer. But again, I want to kind of circle back to what we talked about earlier, in that preparation beats reaction every time, period. So building resilience into your supply chain is a design choice, right? And that should be happening. We should be building options. We should be making decision-making easier, preparing your team, again, with that context, that communication, when things are running smoothly is key, because then when the disruptions happen, it's not our time to panic. It's our job to stay steady and calm and make sure that, again, we're communicating in an effective and meaningful way so that our teams can be making quick, meaningful decisions to help our customers make quick, meaningful decisions and make sure they're getting what we've committed to providing to them. I think the worst time for you to learn where your risk lies is after the disruption hits. This work never stops, it never ends. Once everything is settled and good to go, that's really where you roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty and make sure that we're protected and ready for the next one.
Great advice, and it does never end. It just seems like there's always more and more and more, and that we're getting faster and better at handling more and more and more. And this is a bit of a curveball. I didn't plan to ask you this, but I think this is something we both appreciate. So is there anything that you can think of from a supply chain standpoint that AI can assist with and help you in terms of getting those better outcomes?
No, I appreciate the curveball, Sean. It keeps me on my toes. I like it. I personally feel like we are just scratching the surface of what we can accomplish with AI. And I know for Polo, it's we're somewhat conservative in that front because we have important military contracts and we have to be very sensitive in how we manage our our information, and I appreciate that. One simple thing that I have discovered that is just phenomenal to me is, again, so as I mentioned, I've been here since forever. We get into routines and we get into patterns that aren't necessarily the best routines or the best patterns. We develop blind spots over time. And where I am finding the most meaningful cognitive growth pattern for myself using AI is it identifies some of my blind spots. So, throwing a large data collection into a spreadsheet, having Copilot do a little bit of analysis for me, brings up or points out things that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise considered. Now, do I always action that? No, not necessarily. But I'm growing my mindset and my ability to again, problem solve and best serve everybody. That's one way it's helping my brain. The other way is, oh my gosh, to be able to tell Copilot, hey, make a pivot table that does XYZ instead of having to remember the formulas. These are simple, rudimentary ways to use AI to our advantage. Yeah. From a supply chain standpoint, the time saved in the analysis, the time saved is enormous. And I just actually was talking with a customer earlier this week about a podcast I listened to that they should give us a credit for this, but it's called Think Fast, Talk Smart. It's a Stanford guy, and he recently had an author on talking about AI and protecting your career in the face of AI. Phenomenal. Listen, great book. And I can't think of the title right now. I'll have to look that up. But the message being, AI is not here to take our jobs.
Right.
Don't be afraid of it. Lean into it. Learn it. Figure out how to leverage it and apply it. Because what it is doing is giving us the opportunity to lean into and work on the pieces that we are really good at. And it takes away some of the weight of that other work that maybe isn't our forte. As the human race continues to grow, there's going to be opportunity for work, and we don't want to be left behind.
I need to teach AI how to do my expense reports, because that is not the part of my job that I love the most.
Listen, Sean, if you can figure that out, you're going to have to copy and paste that script for me.
I'll train everyone.
Wow, no kidding.
No, but I'm sorry, I joke, but I do feel like that is what we are stepping into is those tasks that are time consuming, that are laborious, and that aren't really what our best use of our brains are for. Those types of tasks can be more automated and at least less time consuming, and that can give us 20% more capacity to find different ways to add value to our customers. And so, I think,
or focus on the human side, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm not spending half a day doing my expense report, Sean, you and I could go for lunch and have a great conversation and maybe learn something.
solve all the world's problems. The Strait of Hormuz,
That's right.
We're good. You got it. Jen and I had lunch, and we
That's
didn't
right.
do expense reports.
Great.
Sorry, that really escalated quickly. I'm going to continue with a Will Ferrell theme, quote theme that I've got going on. So anyways, this is unraveling fast. I really appreciate your time, Jen. We'll have to put that podcast in the show notes too. That the one that you were talking about with the Stanford professor. I think that's a great.
I'll shoot it to you and Zachary in an IM so that you can do that, because it really did make an impression on me, that one specific episode.
Yeah, I think another thing, just while we're on that topic, even though we're wrapping here, a customer that I saw at a conference, he was talking about, as things become more automated for plant associates, if they add a robot arm or something here that used to be doing something here, what else can we do, or what else can that associate do that's going to put out more product faster? And I think that's the way that people need to be thinking about things right now, especially when you see some of the intimidating headlines of Oracle's letting go 30,000 people.
If we can get to that scale where we actually had to let people go, I would be hard pressed to figure out how it. At this point, we would never hire that many people to need to let them go, right? We would automate it for sure, but it's a fascinating subject, and again, I think of it in terms of like our project or pipeline work, right? When we work a kind of a dud project, we often talk about the opportunity cost that we've maybe lost or given up because we were deploying resources towards something that wasn't lucrative. Exact same thing with AI in my mind. Right. If we can free up your time to work on something else that is more lucrative or more human-oriented, more valuable, we're increasing, you're gaining new opportunities as a result. It's just really exciting to be a part of.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity for activities. there's
exactly.
that is a really exciting thing to be a part of. It's a absolutely crazy, tumultuous time, but at the same time, there's so many ways that you can think about how to provide more value and to achieve more, and so it's exciting, and I'm glad to have you as a partner to think about these things and to work together to solve our customers' challenges and problems and support their growth and success. So, Jen, it's been a whole lot of fun talking to you today. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, Sean. Anytime. Always a great visit. Thank you.
Thank you.